Welcome to Faenliss's Combat Academy. Here we will break down some combats from my recent campaign. For this inaugural episode, we'll focus on the first of the encounters from Paizo's Rusthenge adventure. Link to the PDF or the Foundry module in the description below. We start this encounter with the party escorting an NPC along a seaside trail, following a violent storm. They hear a frantic voice calling out for help from an overturned rowboat on the beach ahead of them. A perception check and some role play later,
Daft enough to get stuck under a rowboat.
we are already into initiative. We start off by giving the witch an option to use nature for her initiative, as she'd been using scouting for plants and such things as her exploration mode activity, but she preferred to use perception, so I allowed that. For the fighter, however, we did use his most recent perception check on the rowboat as his initiative. Everyone else rolled perception as normal. And upon lifting the boat up, we see not a trapped individual, but instead an odd scorpion-like creature. This boat lifting, I'm considering the initiating event of the combat. It's not one of Daegron's actions. It's not happening at his turn. It's what sparked combat. Up first, we have Vanarel, our ranger. He strode up next to the boat, drew one of his warhammers, and hunted prey. A pretty standard first turn for a ranger. We had been walking through the forest and beach all day. Their characters were singing songs, enjoying conversation with their party members and the NPC. They knew it was a long day, almost 8 to 12 hours of hiking. So they were not weapons at hand all along. Perhaps if it was a weapon like a hiking stick or a polearm, it's a different story. But in this case, I appreciated Vanarel's decision that he didn't have the weapons drawn. He had to spend the actions to do that. Usually I don't complain either way with the party's decision. I kind of let them make the choice for themselves. Most of my players make things harder on themselves, so this all works for me. Then Desi, our cleric, did a recall knowledge on the creature and got a success. I gave the name, type, and some background information and flavor, and then offered one question. Desi wanted to know its weakness, and it didn't have any, so I gave the high AC and reflex saves of some of the defenses that are more tricky to get around. Desi then tried a needle darts, which had a critical miss, so no effect. Desi gave some role play around the miss, but no actual penalty or complication ensued. Daegron was up next, and he wanted to throw the boat over. This could have been an athletics check, but I let it just cost one action. He is a strong character, and it's already costing an action maybe more than the scenario was intending. There was no real scripted bit about how long the reef claw stays in the boat, how much cover it has, is it actually overturned or upright. So I'm already ad-libbing here a little bit in the scenario. The one action for free to kind of make it easily to target, to me, felt completely fair. It also let him feel creative, and like the GM is going to be open to these kind of suggestions. Early on in the campaign, I think it's very important for the GM to set the tone they want. If they want it strictly by the book, every action called out, or if they want some ability to freeform problem solve. And I prefer the latter in my game, so I want to be very permissive in these early encounters. After throwing the boat over, he tried a snagging strike, a special class feat for fighters for the one-hand free variant. If you hit them, you make them off guard while they're in your reach. They're not grabbed, however, so they can simply move away to end the condition. He then tried a second attack as his third action with the multiple attack penalty and missed. The Reef Claw got to go next and tried to strike at Daegron and missed. Then tried a second strike which hit. The hit had a poison exposure to save against, but Daegron saved. It then, for its third action, tried its plus grab from its attack, but it failed to grab. This is a place, of course, where Legacy and Remaster Pathfinder 2e can be very different. In the Legacy, a plus grab was an auto success. In the Remaster, it has to roll, but it has a chance of getting a critical as a result. Libiel was up next, our witch, and she tried a Live Wire spell, which is an AC targeting cantrip, which does damage on a miss. It's one of the very few AC spells that does damage on a miss, which makes it very popular in some circles. However, its heightening every other rank can make it run hot and cold at some points. It is still great at level 1, though. It also does 2 damage types, which can be nice for working around weaknesses or resistances. Libiel then strode, both to get further from the creature and to open up a clearer shot for next turn. One bit of advice here: use this third action first, removing the cover before the shot rather than after. That 1 point of cover would not have made a difference on her roll in this case, though. In round 2, Vanarel drew his second weapon and used his Ranger feat of Twin Takedown, which requires 2 weapons in hand and a hunted prey target, so it might take until round 2 to pull off when weapons weren't drawn. 1 hit, 1 miss, and he killed the Reef Claw. However, the Reef Claw had a reaction to make one final strike as it died, hitting Vanarel, and Vanarel saved from the poison exposure. Vanarel had a third action and chose to seek to see if there were any other threats, because we haven't seen what was making that cry for help. However, the area Vanarel specified did not seem to contain anything. Up next was the hidden creature off to the east, which tried to cast fear on Vanarel, but Vanarel saved against it. The creature then chose to swim further out into the ocean while yelling at the party. Desi tried a recall knowledge. In this case, I let Desi pick the skill rather than cooperatively deciding what skill was most appropriate. Sometimes I like the party rolling what they think it is. It might be right, it might be wrong, but I don't want to waste their actions. So I will, if they get a success on the wrong type, I still give them something. It might be the broad class of the creature with the kind of the standard resistances or weaknesses, rather than any particular details of the creature type. This lets them still try to tell the story and puzzle it out. And I think it often still feels more satisfying, but you can't make it be a waste of actions. You can't make them feel like it's a trap to try this. Desi then also learned it was a Fae, learned some of the background information. Desi then chose to identify the spell it had been cast and learned it had been the Fear spell. Desi didn't take a third action. Um, Desi has a crossbow, so I'm guessing this was a subconscious choice to maybe keep a diplomatic solution open without starting that attempt himself. I'm not sure. I didn't talk to the player afterward about this. Daegron then tried to intimidate the creature with a low roll, but then pushed the boat out into the water, since that's what it seemed like this creature wanted. At this point, I asked the party if they wanted the combat to be over. The Hanavar was swimming and cackling out to the boat, and seeming like it was no longer paying attention to them. The party agreed that hostilities were over. I had the Hanavar gloat about the treasure it had found in the boat, but the party didn't care. The party's escort NPC was happy to see that the party was willing to answer a call for help, even if it was a trap, was happy to see their competence in battle, and their lack of bloodthirstiness. This was a simple encounter, only about a round and a half. It still shows a flexible use of actions, strikes, strides, spells, recall knowledge, intimidates, seeks, drawing weapons, special class abilities. We see a nice broad range of use of a character's abilities here. We didn't see a lot of tactical positioning or debuffing, partially due to the awkward on the beach location and no one wanting to get into the water for flanking. We're starting to learn who these characters are, and I like these trivial to low encounters for that purpose. It lets players make some suboptimal choices without risking the party too much. It lets them establish what their characters want to do naturally rather than optimally, and it starts to shape their personalities for the longer campaign. Until next time, I'm Faenliss Fernurley, your fellow explorer of all things fantastical.